When I bet, I like getting something back, even if I lose. That's why I bet with Fanatics Sportsbook. When I place a bet with them, I earn fan cash, win or lose. I can flip fan cash into bonus bets or use it for new team apparel on Fanatics.com. Download the Fanatics Sportsbook app and let the fan cash flow. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut residents call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts residents call 800-327-5050. New York residents call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland residents visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Knicks Film School X's and O's. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC. No, this is not a pregame pod, and no, I don't even consider myself an X's and O's expert, but we are going to be joined today by two of the better minds to hear and talk basketball with. First, of course, the detail junkie himself, Mr. DJ Zullo. DJ, how you doing?
I'm good, my friend. Glad to be doing this with you. I haven't done one of these with you in a while, so nice to see your face as always. I'm excited. This is going to be a fascinating series, and I can't really think of a better person to be able to pair up with that covers the Pistons. That's going to help us sort of get to the nitty gritty, all the X's and O's, get into the weeds, and we'll have some fun with it.
That's right. That person he's talking about is the gentleman to my screen left, and technically my right, my left. I'm bad with directions, but I do know where the middle of the country is, and that's where you could find Mr. Bryce Simon of the Pistons Pulse over the Detroit Free Press. You could also find him on a little show called Game Theory with Sam Vecini on Sundays and Thursdays, and maybe any other episodes that they decide to have me put together. Bryce Simon, welcome back to Knicks Film School, sir.
I mean, that intro, the video, I love it. I was nervous, like the ad came up, which didn't happen the last time I joined you. And I was like, wait a minute, if I don't get the video intro, I'm leaving. I'm going to go and I'm going to eat supper and I'm going to watch the playing games and I'm going to go to bed. I'm out. Here's my one gripe. Can I get Ron Baker added? Come on, man. Can I get Ron Baker in the video? If there is ever a new iteration, I will pay Knicks Film School to put Ron Baker on the video intro.
DJ, Ron Baker was number 9?
You know what? I'm Googling that as we speak.
So I'm pretty sure Ron Baker was number 9.
Was he number 9?
DJ's looking it up now. I could talk to the people, but here's the problem, Bryce, is that if we're adding Ron Baker to number 9, it means we're eliminating RJ Barrett from the history of the New York Knicks.
So Ron wore 31 a lot.
31, yeah.
So he's 31. Unfortunately, the countdown starts at 24 for a good reason. Nobody in Knicks history has ever worn number 27, or maybe it was number 28. So if you don't know that, it's a countdown. So
so here's what's funny. I didn't
even realize you were counting.
I didn't realize until you just said it right now. No clue.
If it helps, a lot of people didn't realize until like years went by. It's like, oh, wow, they're counting down. I didn't even realize.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I did this exercise with Omari, my co-host on the Pistons pod, and then another really good friend of the pod, Laz Jackson. I can't tell you the Pistons jersey numbers. Like right now, if you ask me what number Malik Beasley was, I'm not sure I could tell you. I only know Cade's number, and that's because they call him Deuce sometimes. Like that's like if you ask me what I've watched a lot of Knicks games this year. I don't know what number Karl Anthony Towns is. I have no clue.
35, right, DJ?
No, 32.
32. Right? Okay. All right.
Well, I'm also bad with numbers. I'm great in like 90s, 2000s when I was like into that, but current, I'm lost too. So yeah, I'm with you, Bryce. So we're in lockstep there.
I think it's the X's and O's thing because people will tweet about how ugly the uniforms are or the core is, or like my wife will tune in for 6 seconds if they're playing, the Warriors because she loves Jimmy Butler, and she'll be like, "That core is hideous," or "Those jerseys are awesome," and I'm like, aren't they just white or red? Like, I didn't even know they were wearing different jerseys or that there was something different with the court tonight.
Yeah.
We are so locked in, is what you're saying. To the actual X's and O's, into the weeds. Absolutely.
Yes.
So it sounds like we have the two perfect men for the job tonight then to talk the X's and O's. Clearly, I don't know numbers because I don't remember what Cat's number is. And listen, this is after years of being told to put Julius in the countdown. I was like, I know he's number 30.
I knew that. Julius gave me my start. I always like.
That's right. That's right.
Without Julius Randle's series against the Hawks, I would not have got to where I got today. Facts.
Yeah.
Wait, quickly, what's the backstory there? Because I have no idea.
So we built this thing from essentially the ground up, right? Like Motor City Hoops was the first podcast. It built out whatever. But the breaking point was I finally was like, I can do video breakdown. I think I can see what I see these people doing. So I reached out to somebody. It was actually a Hornets content creator. They told me how to clip stuff. Well, it was right at the end of the season. The Pistons suck, so their season was over. And so I was like, I want to keep working on it. So I did a Julius Randle, why it wasn't all his fault that the offense was breaking down in that series, like how the defense was loading up against him. Unfortunately, Knicks fans took to it and kind of blew up. And then Pistons people saw it and they said, hey, come over and do that for our site. It was Detroit Bad Boys, SB Nation. And then things continued to build from there. But that was like my first, like, hey, this guy can actually do this stuff. It was actually a Julius Randle, New York Knicks.
Look at that. That's amazing. I love that story.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
I'm glad something good came out of that series.
Well, yeah, cosign that we got Bryce out of it.
Yeah, right.
The only thing I got, apparently. We'll see if the Knicks guard the Pistons a similar way with Cade Cunningham coming into the series. Which is a good transition point into leaving the keys to you guys. So I will just start with this. This was a good icebreaker, first 5-7 minutes to the pod. Now I will lead with a question and then get out of here. My question for both of you at the start is just a simple vibes. Like, how do you feel from both sides that you're representing? How do you feel about your team's chances coming into this series?
I'll start. I feel good about their chances. I don't feel as good, I think, as maybe some Knicks fans believe I should be feeling. And, I think this is going to be, and maybe we can get into predictions a little bit later. This is going to be a long series in my book based on how they played each other during the regular season and how these teams match up. Matchups make fights. And I think there's certain things that the Pistons do that I don't think the Knicks have great answers for, and they certainly haven't given me confidence that they have those answers readily available. They might have those solutions developed in the time that the regular season ended until we get to game one. But we'll get into all those details, but I certainly view the Knicks as favorites, but I don't view the Knicks as heavy favorites. And I think that's sort of the thing I'm wrestling with. And how can the Knicks beat this team in all those aspects? Bryce, I don't know what you think. I think you also think the Knicks are going to win, but do you think this is going to be a close, hard-fought series?
I do. I think the Knicks win the series, but I also think that it's going to go at least 6. Like, I really feel that way. I've said, I think I tweeted this out, I think we get one Cade game that results in a win where like Cade just goes crazy. And I think we get one, whether it's Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. or something like that, like just a ridiculous floor spacing 3-point shooting game, because I do think, as we'll get into, the Knicks will eventually and at times load up on Cade and tell other people to beat them. That gets you 2 wins. How do you get the other 2 if Detroit is actually going to win the series? I have a harder time with that, as we'll get into. My vibes real quick is this team is playing with house money. They won 14 games last year. They vastly improved that win total. They have an all NBA performer. Perhaps their second best player didn't even play most of the season. And so they're playing with house money. What I'm fascinated to see was, does that let them play free and confident and with attitude? Or do they not feel that way, DJ? Do they feel a little pressure and go into the Garden, games 1 and games 2 in the playoffs, where most of these guys don't have experience, and they feel that, and all of a sudden it's a little bit of a struggle? So I don't think it will be, but that's always an aspect that could happen with a team that's never been there for the most part with these guys.
Yeah, until you see it, it's hard to to really judge how a team is going to react first time out for a lot of them. And you saw Cleveland a couple of years ago, that game 3, first game in MSG, they had a deer in the headlights look to them. Curious to see how the Pistons handle that. Now, one of the themes for you has been data collection, trying to figure out like, what can we glean from this team and project forward. Other than Cade Cunningham, which to me is obviously like the biggest thing that you could pull from this season, all NBA leap. I project him to be on that level for the next 10 years. Like, you're good there. What other thing do you feel confident in that in this series could have a big impact on them pushing the Knicks to the brink and potentially winning it? Has there been something that you're confident in after watching this team for 82 games? You're like, yeah, that can translate into the playoffs.
I mean, Cade is the number one, as you brought up. There's some others I'm nervous about, DJ. Like, this is where my lack of confidence as somebody that's watched 82 games of this team gets a little bit nervous. I think I want to say defense. I think I want to say their mentality. But like I just said, who knows what it's going to look like in a playoff scenario. I think they'll be locked in. Like, I can't believe that they were a top 10, top 11 defense all year, and then they get into playoffs and JB all of a sudden can't scheme correctly. Now, there's always the caveat that Jalen Brunson just goes crazy, right? Like, we've seen him be incredible. Cat could do it. Shoot, even Bridges or OG could do it. There's those outlier areas. I mean, with Brunson, it's not even an outlier. It's probably going to happen because he's amazing. I think defensively, my biggest worry is offensively, and that's where I don't necessarily lack confidence. I will say my biggest data collection is Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson, because I think these are potential awesome matchups for them on the defensive end.
Well, you mentioned Asar, and to me, such a fascinating I don't want to, X Factor is almost doing him a disservice, but in terms of a guy that can swing a series with his defensive acumen, and we can get into certain things. I don't know if there's two more important things to talk about than how the Knicks are going to defend Cade and how the Pistons are going to defend Jalen. So let's start with Brunson.
Okay.
As a Pistons observer analyst, do you see them going with the SAR, or do you see them going with Cade to get the primary reps against Brunson, allowing a SAR to maybe roam and play that off-ball wrecking style of defense? Or do you think they go, what I think would be the more likely is just give Asar the matchup and let's see him try to slow Brunson down?
So I was a little bit surprised. In the recent game, Cade started on Brunson, and then I had to go back through my notes. So, shameless plug. If you guys want to follow all of my notes through this, the Motor City Hoops Substack will have, and it's not just Pistons notes, it'll have Knicks notes and video breakdowns. I have a preview coming on Thursday where I went back and pulled what I thought were the most important notes from my notes throughout the 4 games of the regular season. So it's not all of them. It's not cumulative. It's like, I think this applies to what we may see in a playoff series. What I realized was, because these games run all together, right? Cade started on him in other games as well, started on Brunson. I would be fascinated to know if that is hey, we then get the cross match on the other end where we automatically get Brunson on Cade and we don't have to even try to run action to get that. Or if it is we want to keep Asar out of foul trouble to start a game. Or is it we want to put Asar as an off-ball roamer and he's better in that role? My fear here, DJ, is Detroit can't afford for Cade to get in foul trouble. Like, that cannot happen. We're going to talk about the lack of number 2 scorer anyway. You take him off the floor and they're in real trouble. I would go Asar, but my data collection says I want to see Asar. Like, I'm all about data collection in this series. I want to see how good Asar can be guarding Jalen Brunson, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, and if there is a player type that has given Brunson the most trouble, it's the super athletic, rangy, long wings, which obviously Asar Thompson is like a 99th percentile version of that. So he would theoretically be a positive matchup for the Pistons. But then you flip it to the Knicks side, and it's like, the way I look at this is the OG Anunoby factor, because you mentioned Asar. Do you want him on the ball? Do you want him off the ball? I've gone back and forth on this, and I'd love to get your take on it. Initially, I'm like, you have to put OG on the Cade matchup based on the physicality. Cade is so good getting to that intermediate, short mid-range area. There were times where he was walking Mikal Bridges, who got the primary matchup for most part during the regular season, get to his spots, and then he's so physical, he can go through Mikal just outside the restricted area. When he gets inside the restricted area, I think he struggles a little bit more, but when you get to that jump hook, the turnaround over the left shoulder, he's so tough to handle. So I'm like, all right, OG is like, that's the guy that OG could really bother. Now, I think one of the adjustments the Knicks are going to make going into the series is, and this is something Thibodeau did in the Cavaliers series 2 years ago, is have the big, whether it's Towns, whether it's Robinson, playing higher at the level. And if you're going to do that, I think it puts less pressure on Mikal as a chaser over the top, fighting over those screens. So maybe theoretically you can have your big up higher at the level, take pressure off Mikal, and then utilize OG in that gap help defense, backline defense. So if you're going to be more aggressive, you're going to need someone providing rim protection on the back line. That's where I'm leaning right now, at least to start the series, give Mikal the job, but then always have the OG option to go to. Where do you see that matchup playing out, and how would you go deploy OG and Mikal if you're the Knicks?
I love it, DJ, because I'm right there with you. I think it depends on what Thibodeau wants to do. Do you want to start putting 2 on Cade to start the series? I'll be honest with you. I would. I would literally from jump ball, I would go trap him in the backcourt if Detroit wins it. And I'm going to say, Jalen Duren, you're going to make all of these decisions. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a good volume 3-point shooter, but he's not Malik Beasley. You have a complete non-shooter in Asar Thompson. Tobias Harris has been up and down and has some of his own like whenever they signed when the Pistons signed Tobias, people brought up the playoff history. It's like, guys, it does not matter. They probably won't play in the playoffs with Tobias. And then it hit me today thinking about it like, oh, shoot, I have to walk that one back because now it does matter. So that's what I would do. If you're not, and so in that sense, yeah, put Bridges on him or whoever, like leave your 3 best rotation, scrambler, defenders, all of that behind it. If not, though, I do think just in terms of a primary point of attack matchup, it's OG Anunoby. And I've been saying for months now, I think when we get into the playoffs and the game gets slowed down and Detroit has to play in the half court and you can't just spam Cade Duren pick and rolls over and over and over, and people don't guard Asar Thompson, and people don't guard Ron Holland, and people don't guard Isaiah Stewart, you're going to have to go to this like mid-post isolation Cade, and OG is about the only Knicks player who I think can actually disrupt that.
Agreed.
Love Deuce McBride. I love Deuce McBride, DJ. He's too short.
He's too short. He shoots over the top. Yeah.
He just jumps right over the top of him. And so if you're going to play him one-on-one, it's got to be OG, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And certainly OG has the physical tools to handle that. The fascinating piece of it is, how they handle the Brunson, bringing him into the action. It was obviously a sore spot. If you look at Brunson's on-off numbers, they were pretty bad against the Pistons, despite the fact that all his shooting numbers and his efficiency looked great as a scorer. But I think he was really damaging as a defender. How the Knicks handle that is going to be, I think, a key part of the series, because you've seen them vacillate with some options here. You saw in the Celtics matchup, the third one this season, they just switched Brunson onto Tatum, Brown, and just let him go in isolation, keeping them out of rotation. And even though the Knicks lost the game handily, I thought that part of it worked well for the Knicks. I don't think that'll be the primary option, but I think you need to have variables for Cade to look at, especially a young player in a playoff series. Like if you're going to have the blitz option, have the switch option, play some, drop coverage when OG is guarding him based on OG's screen navigation, like have things, especially if Mitchell Robinson's in the game. I think you can maybe take away some of those short mid-range area shots that he's so good at taking. So I think that'll be a key to this. Brunson has to defend, and I think he can't be such a negative for the Knicks to have a really good shot. When you see Brunson as a defender, do you think there's anything the Knicks can do to maybe mitigate some of the problems that, whether it was Hardaway and he's brought up to the action, getting out into space and the rotations off that? Obviously, we saw that with Beasley. What do the Knicks do to maybe lower the impact of Brunson as a minus defender?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to spoil something I highlight a lot in my, preview tomorrow. Brunson tried to take, I think, 2 charges directly on Cade in the most recent matchup. And so, I wonder if that's something, if he gets those calls in the playoffs, that's a huge swing, right? You get Brunson switched out onto Cade, and he's able to take a charge, draw an offensive foul in some capacity. And then now that's a huge win, even in a singular possession. I still think my biggest worry for Detroit offensively, DJ, is the lack of shooting from everybody, right? Like Malik Beasley had a historic 3-point shooting season, truly historic. It's not even hyperbole to say that. Tim Hardaway Jr. is like 37%, I think, on really good volume. Outside of that, like Harris has gravity, but hasn't shot it great.
Yeah.
A guy like Simone Fontecchio, who I thought was going to be really good, hasn't shot it this well this year. Dennis Schroeder, I think, has been exactly what Detroit wanted.
Streaky shooter.
Streaky shooter.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're talking about right now is my fascination on both ends of the floor. Because again, for 2 months, I've been saying, how is Detroit going to keep Asar Thompson on the other team's best player? Because a lot of times right now, they'll soft switch. Are they going to be able to, okay, the Knicks bring Malik Beasley into the action. Are they going to be able to hedge Asar, get over the top and stay on Brunson? And then Beasley recovers if Mikal Bridges ghosted or picks and pops or, whatever. And so I think this is a huge part of, can you keep your primary defender on the other team's best player, and which team is able to do that better?
That's a great point. And you mentioned Bridges, and it's something that, despite the season being underwhelming, his ability as a screener to get low leverage. So if they're going to switch, he's really good at staying below the switch. So he just sets it. It almost doesn't really set it. He just kind of hip touches and then gets out of the screen. And he's so much lower than the person trying to switch onto him that he's got low leverage, and he gets into the paint. He can finish. Him screening for Brunson, I think, has to be a part of the Knicks scheme, based on you think there's going to be a lot of Hardaway and a lot of Beasley defending Bridges. So how does that sort of play out? Now, I mentioned X factors earlier in the program. To me, for the Knicks, like how they utilize the double big lineup, it's going to be used.
You brought this up.
Yeah, so like Mitchell Robinson played the most minutes of his season against the Cavaliers. His last game of the regular season, played roughly 30 minutes, played a full 12-minute quarter, ramping him up for, I think, a larger minutes load in the playoffs. What do you think the Pistons counter, because they don't really play, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pistons really don't match up Duren and Beef Stew. So what do you think the Pistons potential counter to that double big look for the Knicks?
I was just looking it up. I thought so this says they played 9 games together, NBA.com, but it was for a total of 8 minutes. So like there's multiple, just like, because I remember one specific game where it happened for like 2 or 3. Yeah. This is not like Detroit. So for Knicks fans, like a little bit into the weeds, Detroit experimented with Isaiah Stewart at the 4 for a couple years. Like they wanted to see if he could do it. A lot of Pistons fans hated it. I understood it because the team sucked. And I thought if you were going to experiment, that was the time to do so, because you can't experiment once you become good. You can't try things out. So it was better to figure it out then that it wasn't going to work. I am hard pressed to think that in a playoff series, they decide to go to that lineup. My guess is they just make sure they match those minutes with Tobias Harris on the floor. And I would assume they feel okay with Tobias on Cat and then Duren matching with Mitch Rob, and then they would just stay there. I think that's the only logical way to do it as I see it. I would be lying if I wasn't like, I think it'd be hilarious if they went to Beef Stew and Duren just to see what happened, come playoff time. But I would assume JB will just think that Tobias and Jalen are good enough. Tobias is a really good defensive rebounder, DJ. And so that helps. And if you have Asar on the floor, also really good defensive rebounder, Cade can help on the boards. So I think you could collectively keep from getting destroyed on the offensive rebounds, which would be my biggest worry if it's those two, and say like, I don't know if you would play Josh Hart also, because now you have
typically not. So the most common
it would not
lineup,
be Hart. Yeah, okay.
It would be OG, Shamet, maybe Payne. That was the most common 5-man unit. Mitch, Cat, OG, Shamet, Payne. So you get 3 shooters, or 4 if you count Cat with Mitch. That's been the most common pairing. We do have an ad break here in a minute. So quickly, do you have an X factor in mind? Something the Pistons maybe, whether it's schematic, whether it's a player that you could look at as like, all right, this could maybe change the complexion of the series?
Yeah, it's the bigs on Cat. And honestly, it's how many threes Cat's willing to take. I can't tell you how many Pistons fans, and not in a negative way, were like, why isn't Cat shooting more threes in this game? I literally thought it was strategic, DJ. Like my first instinct was Cat is purposely not shooting threes because there's a chance they could match up in a week, and they don't want to expose it even more to where Detroit like tries to come up with a different idea. It's Jalen Duren and even Isaiah Stewart. Can they defend, or do they go to something different and put a bias on him and let the bigs roam? That is the X factor for me, because Detroit has to be good defensively, and if they can't guard the stretch big, they're going to really struggle.
All right, Andrew, you got the break queued up?
I do.
Sir.
I just want to add one thing. Shout out to Benji Rithold, who is away for Passover this week, so that's why we're lucky enough to do this crossover. But one of our other X's and O's experts, Bryce, he also was very confused watching that Pistons game, why the Knicks weren't just spamming Cat pick and pops, and like Cat, like the meltdown in the group chat, and I'm pretty sure online as well, of like, there's a center on Cat. What are we doing? Like,
well, Andrew, I said to Benji, I'm like, I think this has to be a playoff thing. Like, just don't let them see. I mean, it seems crazy, but the game, the game doesn't matter. So that was the only thing that made sense to me.
Yeah,
watching it live, but it was wild watching it.
Look, the PJ Tucker was sharing the court with them during that time. I have to think the Knicks were like, let's try not to take this game as seriously as possible, which of course was a struggle for one Thomas J. Thibodeau. Okay, we're gonna do a quick ad break. Shout out to the fine folks at Fanatics Sportsbook, our presenting sponsor for today. Place your bets now and win fan cash with every bet, win or lose. Here is our fine friends at Mando, and here is one Jonathan Macri.
Hey guys, quick word to tell you about our friends from Mando. What is Mando? Well, I'll tell you. It is a whole body deodorant that is safe to use anywhere on your body. Yes, there is a part of your personage that may smell. Mando is to the rescue. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO, we all know about BO, was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. So here's the deal. Mando, does it have a normal deodorant stick that you've been using your whole life on your underarms? Absolutely it does. And it's great. But that's not all that they have, because your BO and your odor does not just come from under your armpits. It comes from all over the place. So if you want a little spray for yourself, Mando has that. If you want a little invisible cream, Mando's Pro Sport, it has that. If you want some body wash for your different odor issues, Mando has that. And best of all, they have these invisible wipes. These are my favorite ones. You pop them open, you grab a wipe. If you know you've been sweating from a particular place, wipe it off a little bit, and you're good to go. Mando truly has figured out something that it has taken way, way, way too long to figure out for us men. We are busy, we are sweaty, we are smelly, and we must control that odor. Mando's starter pack, it really is perfect for new customers. It comes with all the things that I just showed you, plus free shipping. And as a special offer for Knicks Film School listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to 40% off your starter pack. Just use code KFS at shopmando.com. Again, it's 40% off a starter pack by using code KFS at shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
Ain't a soul in the Knicks Film School universe that should have body odor after watching that. So shout out to the fine folks at Mando, and shout out to Bryce Simon, and shout out to DJ Zullo, and shout out to everybody watching live. I see the number 800 as far as live watchers at the moment. So thank you to everybody tuning in for this edition of KFS X's and O's. We will start, and I'll you guys take turns, I guess, in who wants to talk first. DJ, I'll hand it over to you. Here is your first question.
All right, Drew P. What's up, Drew? Thank you so much for hopping on with us. Question is, can I genuinely hear the argument of Josh starting? What are the benefits of it besides transition offense? Well, Bryce, I don't know if you know this, but Josh Hart starting, not starting, minutes, load has been a question, I think, since the preseason, or maybe since the Cat trade happened. It's been on most Knicks fans' minds since then. The way that he played, I think, in the first 2 to 3 months of the year, I think put some of those questions to bed, though the starting lineup net rating never really has materialized in a way that you would think based on the talent. And then since the All-Star break, the rim finishing numbers have come down. Obviously, the 3-point volume and shooting has come down. So there is a genuine concern here regarding Josh Hart starting or not. Whether or not you think he should or shouldn't start, he's going to start. And I think there's reason to believe that the Knicks, as the 3rd seed, shouldn't be making such a drastic change at this point. Like, if you weren't going to take Josh Hart out of the starting lineup, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do it before game 1 of your first round series. Now, I don't think we need to see 38 minutes of Josh Hart, and I think that could be where Tibbs pulls back a little bit, and maybe it's 32 minutes, 28 minutes potentially of Josh Hart if the shooting really doesn't come around. Because if he's not shooting the basketball at close to the level he did in the playoffs last year, it's going to make things much easier for the Pistons. So I guess, Bryce, the question on your side is, like, what does Josh Hart not being a viable shooter right now, what does that do for JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons defense as a guy you can play off of, not really defend?
I think it depends on who they end up putting on him, right? Because I'll be honest, as somebody that from the Pistons perspective, I worry about putting the wrong guy on him and him just destroying the Pistons on the offensive boards, right? Like, you put a guy on him that's not a good off ball, like, box out, and go grab defense, or it doesn't have to be a good defensive rebound. It just has to be a guy that's definitely going to box him out. So that's what I worry about with him, is, like, I've gone through the matchups of different guys. It's kind of why I like the idea of a SAR on Josh Hart. I don't know if you can get to matchups where that makes the most sense, but it's like, if you put a SAR on Josh Hart, you play off of him, you dare him to shoot, and then a SAR is a really good rebounder. So I think he could match that and keep him off the boards. But it's like, okay, something to watch for. If you're watching the game and you see Ron Holland on Josh Hart, and I love Ron Holland, I think he's had a really good year, probably has an argument for all rookie team, even for his lack of box score counting numbers. He's really bad boxing out, on the defensive end. Josh Hart's going to go get 1, 2, 3 on him in a few minutes. And I think transition is important as well. Like, he's got to be one of the best transition players in the NBA, at least not of the main names.
Yeah.
Right.
It hasn't been the same of late. And there's a verve of his game that's been missing for a bit. And he's had a knee injury that's been somewhat of a concern. He's missed some games, but it's sort of, you can just see that he doesn't have the same burst of the grab and go elite transition play that he had earlier in the year. Now, listen, the week or so break that he's going to have might be the antidote to get him back to that level, but it hasn't been the same Josh Hart as we're accustomed to seeing in that particular area of the floor.
I'm just a little, to your point, I'm a believer in continuity and chemistry and roles and flow. If this was going to be a thing, Tibbs should have done it 20 games ago and had 20 games to kind of figure it out. Now, to your point, if Detroit, I'm interested to see if Detroit will play off of him, because I don't know that that's something I've seen them deploy a lot this season. So I'm fascinated to see, no matter what the matchup ends up being, if they go Tobias on Cat and Jalen Duren on Josh Hart, are they really going to stand 10 feet off and not guard him and let him shoot wide open 3 after wide open 3 and see how it goes? But if Detroit does do that and he's struggling, I mean, the nice thing for the Knicks is you have a really good guy off the bench to come in and fit into the lineup and deuce.
Yeah, so it'll be an interesting piece of it. I think a lot of Knicks fans are assuming Hart's just going to flip the switch like he did last year. I'm a little less confident in that, but maybe he's able to find his shot again. I think he's a major piece to this offense, maximizing their overall talent. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you kicking us off here. Bryce, you want to take the next one?
So from Aiden Wilson, what is your guys' bold prediction for the playoffs? That is a fun one. I'm going to have to pull up the overall bracket and see if I can find something I like here. The team I like, I'm not sure I'm ready to make a prediction. I've liked the Clippers all year, DJ. I have a hard time saying anything too crazy because it's like, is Kawhi actually going to play and be healthy? But I could talk myself into some bold predictions with the Clippers.
Yeah, they've been a fun team, and Zubac has been such a
He's incredible
beast. I mean, the 2-man game with him and Harden. I mean, it's. I know a lot of NBA like watchers, observers know how good those two are playing off each other, but I think nationally it's probably an underrated pairing because it's almost been from the start. You remember like once when Harden went there initially, like it was the first call he made was the zoo and like, all right, we need to develop this chemistry. Let's go work out. And it was like from the jump, those two have been an elite pairing and it's only gotten better. So, I mean, the Clippers are based on their starting five and like that group and how good they are and Kawhi playing at this level. I mean, are they the second? If I had to pick a team I'm most confident in outside the Thunder, I might go with the Clippers.
So
in terms of getting out of the West.
Yeah, so that's the thing. If they were on the other side, I'd make like my bold like would be they make it to the Western Conference Finals. The only reason I don't want to do that is because I love the Thunder and I feel like they're really good and gonna. But yeah, I don't know that I believe in the Clippers a whole lot less than I believe in the Lakers. I think the Lakers have a flawed roster, and as talented as the big three is there. The Warriors are interesting, but I think that matchup with the Rockets is going to be fascinating because the Rockets are going to defend the heck out of them. Like, I know I would love to be like, oh, the Knicks are going to upset the Celtics, but I can't say that. Sorry, Knicks fans with like pure intentions. If I really wanted to be bold, maybe the Cavs get knocked off in the semis. But yeah, it's something with the Clippers. Maybe it's what you said. The Clippers would be my second favorite team in the West or something.
Bryce, don't worry. Neither do we think that the Knicks will upset the Boston Celtics. So neither can we be that bold. Don't worry.
Okay. Makes me feel better.
Well, actually, my bold prediction, I've been thinking about this one for a couple weeks now when I've sort of projected out where the play-in could go. I think Orlando can give the Celtics like a really tough 6-game series.
Sure.
And it's based on Boston obviously being an elite volume 3-point shooting team and Orlando being so good at suppressing 3-point shooting. And obviously their defensive matchups, they probably match up as well as any team top to bottom. And, they're Paolo and Franz are good enough to where like maybe they can each play at their peak and give Boston like a really tough series. Like I would never pick Orlando, but I can see that series easily going 6 and Boston maybe sweating it out a little bit because I think Orlando's defensively, they're that good. They're that equipped to maybe do the one thing that maybe no other team could really do is like really get Boston's 3-point shooting to a manageable number in terms of the volume and just stay in it that way. Now, how they score on offense, I don't know. That might be where Boston ends up winning this in 5 because Orlando can't put the ball in the bat in the hoop, but they can keep the volume of 3-point shooting down. That might give them a fighter's chance and maybe get a couple games in that series.
They're such a fascinating team. I enjoyed that game last night so much because I couldn't say more positive things about what they did on the defensive end. And they have so many guys they can throw at you, even off the bench with Jonathan Isaac and Anthony Black. And they have so much length and they just cover ground and they disrupt everything. And then offensively, DJ, they don't win that game, I don't think, if Cole Anthony and Anthony Black don't go crazy on the offensive end. Like those two guys went bananas, and I think Atlanta probably comes back. I think they got it to 3 or something like that. Got it close, but I think that would be interesting. Like I'm excited. I think all the Western Conference series are going to be awesome. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. Maybe not the Thunder one, depending on who that ends up being. Pacers Bucks is interesting to me. I think this Knicks Pistons one is probably the best first round series in the East. But yeah, I think Orlando being the team to take on the Celtics because of what they could potentially do defensively to them makes that series at least kind of interesting to watch and track.
Yeah, great closeout team. Like you don't see them getting complete. They'll give up drives if they sell out on a shooter, but they're always going to be on your hip. They're going to make it tough. Closeouts are everything in the NBA nowadays. So if you can win the closeout game and just stay competitive in that area, that those micro specific areas of basketball, like that to me is like where Orlando can maybe surge to the point of giving Boston some trouble.
Love it.
Great question, Aiden. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Keon Paras. Is that a Keon? Yes. Keon, what's going on? Thank you so much for checking in with us. For DJ and GMAC, listen to Macri's pods with Jeremy and Katz. How much if at all, do Knicks fans consider quote unquote Amir Thompson? There's an inside joke Bryce will catch you up on in a second.
I'm really confused.
Okay. Amir Thompson's playmaking as a threat if they load up on Cade, maybe Schroeder. So on one of the recent pods, I think with Jeremy, Andrew, John unfortunately referred to Asar Thompson as Amir Thompson, and
so the verbal tick that's happening is he's combining the Thompson twins.
Oh, I mean,
yeah. Like I'm picturing them separately, but together they make Amir instead of Amir and Asar. So,
yeah. Gotcha.
Well, to the question regarding Thompson's playmaking as a threat. Now, I think Bryce, I'm going to throw this right back to you because you, as someone that's watched all 82, you would have a great insight into this. I would just say, like, Asar and the men, they have certain instincts on both sides of the floor that transcend maybe their skill level as specific offensive players right now. Like they're better playmakers than I think the numbers even suggest. Just, even though Asar's assist numbers have been solid this year. What do you think of him? Like if the Knicks were to load up on Cade and make Asar play in a 4-on-3 advantage, can he really make the Knicks pay and win those matchups more times than not? Like, how do you see that playing out?
I wouldn't be so confident in that he could, that if I'm Tibbs, I don't try to see it because he is liable to be loose with the ball, not just with his handle, but with his passing, his decision-making, where his lack of scoring and shooting also comes in is like, I think you could put him in some really tough decisions like, hey, Asar, take this 15-foot jumper, and so it's not just about playmaking, it's the decision-making in general in terms of, okay, we're going to let you be the guy that catches it in the quote unquote short roll off putting two on Cade, but we're actually going to stay home.
Does he have a floater?
No. Like
okay.
That's the thing is like, It's essentially all, I'm going to attack your body. Sometimes he tries to dunk on you. At times he'll put his body into you and then finesse finish, stuff like the one thing we've seen in his career, and it was more so actually in his rookie season, was like, I'm going to jump higher than you. And he can do that over everybody else other than maybe his twin. And I'm going to shoot like a little 6-8 foot, almost like fadeaway jumper, but not like a true, like, it's not like I heart floater type of stuff. I haven't seen that in his game. And so that's what I'm saying is like, I think you could almost stay home. Like if it's Mitch Rob down there, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to contest late and see if I can force you to take a 10-foot jump shot or consistently make a little floater or something like that. So I think that's where it gets interesting because I do think he can make the necessary passing reads if you get in rotation. He's shown that a lot in transition. That's where Asar Thompson's playmaking is at its best. Talked about Josh Hart being a transition player. Asar Thompson will quickly become one of the best transition players in the league with his grab and go ability and collapsing the defense and then finding people. But it's because there's so much space, right? When it's condensed down, that decision-making isn't always as good.
Yeah. And where he's in a half-court setting as a play finisher, back line. So if it's Duran or Beef Stew catching in the short roll, and then you get the defense, coming up, and then you have the lob threat with Thompson on the back line. That's where he's obviously going to be more effective. Now, watching some tape today, you saw especially when Brunson or Payne were guarding a wing in the corner, they were having that player, whether it was Fontecchio or Thompson, just crash almost every single time. And, Fontecchio, I don't know if he's going to play in the series, but he actually impressed me with his offensive rebounding ability, especially when matched up against Brunson. Like he really got a few extra possessions from that. So you see him being in the rotation, and B, like how much is that like a way for the Pistons to impact the Knicks, putting really their smaller players on some of their bigger wings?
So I got to hold my own receipts. I try to be that guy. I thought Simone Fontecchio was going to be in the starting lineup for the Pistons this year. That's how well he ended last season. Yeah. That's how important I thought his floor spacing was be. And DJ, he just hasn't shot the ball well this year. He finally had a good game in game 82 and a meaningless game against the Bucks. The one thing he has done good offensively, though, is exactly what you said. He has been very good on the offensive boards and actually been decent defensively. But that is kind of unique with Detroit. They don't necessarily keep that backside corner player because it is Fontecchio or it's Asar Thompson who's going to cut in, or even Ron Holland, right, who we haven't talked a ton about. I think Holland is going to play minutes in this series. If I had to guess, right now, based off the last games before that final game against the Bucks, I would say Ron Holland. I feel more confident Ron Holland plays minutes in the rotation than I do Simone Fontecchio.
Interesting. Okay. And Holland actually had a few drives against the Knicks, one against Anunoby in isolation, and then one where it was a second side pick and roll with Brunson. Brunson goes under the screen. They rescreen for him, and then Brunson had trouble getting back, and Holland had the angle, was able to finish in the half court. So he actually had a couple drives, and obviously his motor, physicality, just general verve has been a nice fit with the Pistons. So he should fit in terms of like the playoff atmosphere. Like, he doesn't seem like a guy or a kid really that's going to be afraid of the moment in terms of just the physicality and energy required to play in that series, right? He should fit in pretty well.
I mean, the shooting is my biggest concern. Like, I've said this multiple times now, not just with him, but Asar, Duran, Stu. No, like, here, my favorite example of Ron Holland is, so they're playing the Wizards, and Cade's kind of getting into Keyshawn George, rookie for the Wizards. And Middleton comes over in defense of Keyshawn George, kind of like, dude, leave him alone. You know what? Which I appreciate. Like, good for Chris Middleton. Love it.
Yeah. Be a good vet.
Exactly. Couple minutes later, Marcus Smart and Isaiah Stewart get into it. And Smart is kind of like talking his trash to Stu as Stu is walking to the bench. You know who walks in front of Marcus Smart from the Detroit Pistons? Ron Holland.
Yeah.
It's like, our rookie is the one stepping in this situation against Marcus Smart. And like, to me, it's just an example of his attitude and his confidence. I have a lot of notes throughout the season on Ron Holland. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's like, got to improve. It's always, this dude does not lack confidence. Madison Square Garden in the playoffs is a different monster, right? We all understand that. But I have seen nothing through, he only played 81 games because he got suspended for getting in a fight or scuffle or whatever you want to call it. But like, I've seen nothing that says or tells me he won't have confidence in this series. Might not play out well.
Yeah.
DJ might not play out well, but he'll be confident.
Good for him. Thank you, Keon. Appreciate that. And Bryce, that was a great background on that. Appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead, Bryce. You take the next one.
Drew P. Andrew, after watching the KFTV interview, does Mitch putting up a 103 defensive rating versus Boston and stifling their pick and roll help with your concerns about Mitch versus stretch fives?
Yeah, I got in trouble for, I guess, some Mitchell Robinson slander over at Knicks Fan TV last night, and I guess I could pose this to you guys as well. I mean, DJ, I just do not trust Mitchell Robinson in drop against stretch fives. I've been watching it for 6 or 7 years.
Yes,
now,
agreed.
Every single time Mitch,
no notes.
Like, at the end of the day, it's just been a consistent thing. I know last Tuesday when the Knicks played the Celtics, and if they execute a last 10 seconds foul when you're up 3, they win that game. And Mitch played well that game. And I actually am curious if, as the playoffs go along and you see him more featured and paired up with Anunoby, with Mikal Bridges, to elite wing defenders, with the asterisk on elite when we're talking about Mikal Bridges this season. But like, the fact that you'd pair them with Mitch and not cat and drop, if that's better. Drew, I'm more interested in it than I was before, with you bringing up this defensive rating number for a single sample. Like, fine. It's like, the Mitch argument for me is very much like, you can't count on him to be anything close to your starting center and your backup for more than 40 games at this point. It's just the reality of his injury history.
Which is completely fair. And I think, Mitch and drop versus Celtics is not just a Mitch problem. You can't play drop against, in my opinion, against Porzingis and be effective, because you have so much more room to have to recover, because he's shooting now 29 feet from above the break. I mean, that Mitch can't get there, but what center in the NBA can play a drop, corral the ball, and get out to Porzingis as a shooter? It's just not an untenable thing to ask of him or any center, in my opinion. So, but that's Mitch's comfort zone, playing drop. So that's where it gets complicated. Now, I think in this series, to bring it back to what to this one, I think Mitch can be effective in this series. And really, from the start, Bryce, like his first game against Memphis, his ability to reroute the dribbler and prevent that, because it was against Memphis, so Ja Morant getting into that floater, something the Knicks had a lot of trouble with in previous years when Mitch wasn't playing. His ability to defend in that short mid-range area to me is what his superpower is. Like his rim protection numbers have never been maybe as elite as his reputation, and where he makes his money, quote unquote, is that preventing floaters, making guys reroute and go to the other side, snake their dribble, just put questions in their mind. And against Cade Cunningham, I think that's where Mitch and drop can be theoretically an advantage against Cade, who's like I talked about earlier. And you know this, like he's just so good in the paint, non-restricted, because he has so many avenues. He can just rise up, left shoulder turn, right-handed hook, a lot of optionality there. And against Cat, he can get comfortably into those spots. Mitch will make him think a little more. And I think that would be enough maybe to bring that field goal percentage down, maybe a percentage or two over a long series that can make or break it.
Yeah, I think that's really important because Detroit's not going to employ a stretch big, right? So Mitch Robbins, being able to play in that drop. And I think the big thing with the Cade Duren pick and rolls, you got to be able to play both because he's a real lob threat. Or you got to really trust your tag man, right, to rotate over. And again, this is where like the Asar Thompson, Ron Holland stuff really comes into play. If they're just going to play way off and they're going to be able to tag Duren on the roll with the weak side defender, and then you can essentially truly just say, hey, we got two right here, even in drop, but hey, you don't got to worry about the roll man. If he gets below you, we got Josh Hart tagging or we got OG tagging or whatever. That's important. Cade has gotten really good in his nuance in the ball screen. I think that was one of his biggest growths this year on the offensive end was the snaking, the gelling, the playing with pace. He does the really fun. He'll like fake the pocket pass. It's one of Knicks fans will see it. Schroeder does it as well. He'll come off, Duren's rolling, or Cade will throw his hands up like he's getting ready to throw the lob and get the big man to rise up. And then now he continues to the basket.
Yeah.
And so he has some really interesting thing there. My initial thought was, depending on when Mitch Robb plays his minutes, this may be huge against Dennis Schroeder, where like Schroeder really breaks down the defense for Detroit in the non-Cade minutes. It's not just about his scoring, it's about his creation. So if Mitch Robb in drop can force him to make mid-range jumpers and keep him from getting on the baseline and breaking down the defense and bringing another defender where Malik Beasley can relocate, that might be his biggest impact in this series is the Knicks winning the non-Cade minutes because he helps eliminate Schroeder in the second unit pick and roll stuff.
Very interesting. Yeah, Schroeder's we talk a lot about X factors now. He feels like someone that could have a game or two. It just feels like obviously with his international play, not going to be afraid of the moment, right? He's
sure.
I don't think the Knicks will want Brunson on him. I'm curious to see how they play that matchup, but he's a fearless player and a guy that I wouldn't put it past him to like really change the complexion of a game or two in this series. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you checking in and your question. Emil Borman. Andrew, help me.
Yeah, Beaumontsor.
Beaumontsor. Emil Beaumontsor. What's up, Emil?
Go.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think Mikal is the X factor. All right, more X factor talk in this series. His ability to abuse the drop. His numbers against the Pistons have been solid, which, Emil, I posted earlier today. And as I talk, I'll try to pull it up regarding Bridges against the Pistons over the 4-game sample here. It was give me a second. All right, 4 games, 19.8 points, 56.6 field goal percentage. And then here's the big one, 52% from 3. Obviously small sample size, 13 of 25. You mentioned Emil abused drop. When Mikal has gotten to his bag, so to speak, it's been when teams have employed a heavy drop. And we talked about snaking. He loves to start the pick and roll to his left hand, get back to his right, to the right elbow, and then just rise up. And if the big isn't high enough, that's a really efficient shot for him. Like he shoots that ball, close to 50%, which is borderline elite for that area of the floor. And in the playoffs, secondary score, third option on a team, you're going to need him to be able to get to that area of the floor. Now, the downside is he's not bending the defense. He's rarely getting to the ball. There's teams are staying home against him. So you don't get the playmaking advantage out of it. And there's the numbers there on the screen, but you could get an efficient 20, 23 points based out of Mikal as a screener, Mikal as a ball handler, and then Mikal in transition, and obviously the corner 3-point options there too. So what did you see out of Mikal in the 4 games against the Pistons? Offensively, we've talked a lot about the defense, but what do you think about him as a scorer?
Yeah, don't bring up the defense. GMAC likes to reference that whenever he gives me some love for the Substack, because guys, it's not paragraph. It's literally bullet point notes that I just write down. There's no periods, there's no commas, nothing like that. It's just my thoughts.
Stream of consciousness.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I was reading through what's coming out tomorrow. Again, shameless plug, check it out. Spoil a little bit. I think what I'm worried about from a Pistons perspective, this team can get lost off the ball. Talk about Dennis Schroeder. Listen, I love Dennis Schroeder. I love what he's brought. I love watching him operate on the baseline. That man gets lost off the ball all the time. And I look back through my notes. Bridges, a couple notes here. Elite shooting relocation on this play. This is worrisome considering Detroit off-ball defense issues this season. He has been very good off-the-ball cutter as well. I feel like he is so fluid with the catch and shoot in the mid-range off of these cuts. So you talk about like snaking ball screens and those type of things. Sure. And this again comes back to the matchups, DJ. Like, who do you end up putting on Mikal? Is that where you try to go with Tim Hardaway Jr.? Is that where Cade ends up going? Who is that going to be? And so it is interesting from Emil here where Bridges, I don't think the defensive impact, I know how I feel about him on that end of the floor, but can he make up for that, in my opinion, with what he does offensively? And I think there's a variety of ways he can do that, not just the on-ball stuff, but take advantage of a Pistons team where I think their biggest weakness outside of guarding stretch bigs is off-ball coverage.
All right. So off-ball coverage key there from Bryce in terms of what you should look for as a Knicks or a Pistons fan into the series. Now, one of the things the Pistons did, and we'll touch on this briefly, in the 3rd game at least, was go to zone a little bit, and it did stifle the Knicks a little bit. I know this isn't a heavy zone team, the Pistons. Knicks obviously don't play zone, but do you think that is a potential thing to be on the lookout for, just to have another option to slow down the Knicks and maybe have just throw a wrench into the mix a little bit?
It's funny. I have this in the preview as well. Pistons zone into the first quarter, force a turnover. Again, after timeout, mid-third quarter, force a turnover. Next possession, force a no-flow 3-point attempt. Ball never got inside the 3-point line. And then after that, my note is all uppercase. Have they been saving this? And so Detroit, I think it was during that portion of the season. When was that game? That was during
January 13th.
It was during that portion of the season where I feel like JB was experimenting with it more in those specific situations. I love coaches that do something different after timeout. Full court press, zone, change up the ball screen. Because they just spent 3 minutes drawing up a play. And if anything you can do to disrupt
just
that.
Steal a possession.
Exactly.
Yes,
and
it
so
matters.
I feel like Detroit hasn't played zone in the last 20 games of the season. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I don't have a lot of notes about it. I feel like JB saw it for 2 months, decided how he was going to use it in the playoffs, and then decided that's what I keep telling myself. So I would not be surprised. ATOs, Knicks get on a run. Something else they've done that's been really interesting. I don't know that the Knicks have this. They actually, against the Suns, anytime they got a switch on Kevin Durant they didn't like, they would go zone in the middle of the possession. So like Phoenix would set a ball screen, they would get whoever on Durant and they didn't like it. Then the whole defense would morph into a zone. It was really interesting. I don't know that you would do that against Brunson
with Josh Hart not being guarded, it's basically a zone.
Same
in a
idea.
sense, because the Knicks will love to run their empty corner pick and rolls on the right side, like a step up screen, and then just give Brunson more room to either attack straight line drive or get into his pull up to his right hand. The Cavaliers in the most recent game, Jared Allen was guarding Josh Hart. He was on Hart's in the left corner. Allen just parked himself on the right block and just took away the drive. So Brunson got to that step back 20-foot jump shot, hit one over Dean Wade. I think missed another one. But, at best, that's a 42% field goal percentage shot. Maybe in a big spot, you're okay with that, but you're not going to. That's an important area of the floor for Brunson to make some hay, and the Hart piece of it can make that challenging. And I guess it depends on how the Pistons play it, but they basically you just load up in such a severe way that you're almost playing, in effect, like a zone defense to try to take away those driving lanes from Brunson. And that's when Brunson can get into trouble, is when you show help early, take away those driving lanes. You know, his 6'1", he has trouble seeing. He can't skip it to the opposite side. So it limits areas of the floor where he can get to. And then you just, again, it's winning on the margins, right? If it's a 47% field goal percentage shot at 12 feet away and it becomes 41% at 18 feet away over a long series, those things matter. And I think that's where a smart coach like JB Bickerstaff, you saw it with Atkinson, can really, play on the margins a little bit. And Thibodeau do the same thing. You're not going to win every possession, but if you just make the shots slightly more inefficient on the defensive side, you're doing your job. And that over a potential long series can matter a lot.
Your dudes have to be dudes, right? If Cade Cunningham isn't an all-NBA caliber player in the series, Detroit doesn't have a chance. If Brunson and Cat have awful series for some reason, it's going to be real interesting. But to your point, assuming those guys do what they're capable of, Thibodeau going zone and disrupting a potential ATO that gets Malik Beasley an open 3-point make, and instead it ends up getting completely disrupting it. And I actually had that in my notes in one of those games. I thought New York, it might have been the same game, maybe the next one, actually did a great job taking away some of Detroit's kind of the actions they love, right? The ones that even as casual fans, you're like, oh, I've seen that. I recognize that. That's something they run a lot. And that's what's fun about the playoffs, because the scouting and the depth of scouting goes to another level in terms of knowing the screener's coming, knowing the double drags coming, knowing Spain's coming, the cleared outside actions that both teams like to run early in offense, and having something for that as opposed to hey, let's just switch it and then see if we can hold up.
Yep. Thank you, Emil. Appreciate you checking in with us. Jay Vertical. What's up, Jay Vertical? Bryce, you go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, Jay Vertical, thank you. What if the Pistons put a SAR on Hart and allow him to roam and take away one side of the floor? What could the Knicks do then? If Hart screens, then you could just switch and live with the result. Only fear. So I go back and forth, DJ, on whether I think Asar's defensive ability is best used on Hart. I talked about it a little bit earlier, right? I think the one thing I do like is the defensive rebounding aspect. I do think Asar is a good off-the-ball defender. I think if you're going to do that, you got to turn him loose. You truly just have to let him cause havoc, come over, block shots, jump passing lanes, rotate into passing lanes, still skip, all of that stuff. If that's how you're going to use him, then it's because you're thinking he can be disruptive, and the Pistons' defensive disruption is vital to their offense because it starts their offensive transition. Yeah,
and the Knicks are a low turnover team, but more specifically, they're a low live ball turnover team because Brunson, obviously, he's controlling the action and he's so solid with the basketball. So if you can get a men to disrupt things, that could maybe allow the Pistons to get some runouts. There was one play in the third game, that's the January 13th matchup again, where late in the game, Knicks are running a Cat Brunson pick and roll. Asar is guarding Brunson. Cat sets the screen, and Asar is out of position because he was almost in between whether or not to switch it or to get back to Brunson, and somehow he gets his left hand in the passing lane, and it was almost like he teleported into the area, got a fingertip on it, and ends up hitting Cat's hand on the way out. They initially called it Knicks ball. They overturned it, Pistons ball. And it was the pivotal defensive play in that game. And it just speaks to his ability to get to, and OG Anunoby actually has some ability like this too. They can get to spots. OG is more with his sheer length and ability to short area burst and just be in your grill in a way that is just not natural for a guy 240 pounds. Both of them are going to make plays as off-ball defenders that only a handful of guys in the league can do. So it's going to be fun just to see those two for a potentially long series just play defense. And I think they're both better off the ball, but I think you have to have both options there because they can do both. That's why they're so great.
Real quick to the question, is Josh good about I call it the Draymond Green, which Draymond Green has lived not being a shooter by being able to make quick decisions, dribbling right into DHOs. Now, the difference is he has the greatest shooter that's ever graced an NBA floor to do that stuff with. But it still plays a little bit with Brunson or even Bridges. Is Hart good if they're just going to play off and way over help, catching the ball, dribbling right into a DHO, or attacking space to somehow keep the advantage alive for the team?
He is. And for anyone listening, basically what Bryce is describing is like, if you have a big playing so far off Hart, if he gets right into a DHO and able to get some kind of brush or a little screen on the whoever's defending the shooter, it's almost impossible for that big that was guarding Hart to get out and provide help in there. It's something that like Bam Adebayo, another one, he made a living with Duncan Robinson on those types of action. So he is good at that. I wouldn't say he is elite at it. What he has become so effective is just screening and rolling into space. That's where I think he's taking advantage of some of those matchups. And there you get the advantage of catch spacing and the ability that he has as a floor spacer, taking advantage of that. So I think that's where Hart has made the most impact, as you know, when teams really put a big on him or a SAR and you just try to force him to make plays into space. But he has I think for the Knicks, they don't have the shooters. Like DiVincenzo was a great partner with him in those DHOs because he was so good going to his right hand, getting into his shooting pocket. McBride is decent at it, and Bridges can do it, but Bridges has been such an ineffective above the break shooter for most of the year that it just takes some of the impact off that action because of his lack of shooting from above the break. But it's certainly something that the Knicks have utilized as maybe a counter to some of these defenses.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I will say that guy is hard to box out because you kind of forget about him. So when a shot goes up, you know, I'm sure Hart is going to be good about taking advantage of that in terms of the offensive boards.
Yeah, and he gets to the elbows too as an offensive rebounder, which is, you know, something I saw the Heat do in the 22-23 playoffs as well as any team, even like guys like Lowry and Martin, just getting their hands on balls and tipping it out. But Hart's really good at just tracking where the ball is going and not necessarily going to the basket, but going to around the free throw line elbow area where those long rebounds can maybe shoot off from. Jay Vertical, thank you so much for that really thoughtful question. Appreciate it. Dirty Dancer, what's up, Dirty Dancer? How are you? JMAC, can you take 10 seconds to laugh at Sam for picking the Pistons at some point? So Sam Vecini did officially take the Pistons in this series. Is that
in
seven? Okay.
Yeah. Dirty Dancer. First of all, no, because I like my job. And second of all, this is a good jumping off point, Dirty Dancer. Fan of both Game Theory and
thank you. Appreciate it.
And Knicks Film
There's
School.
been a couple names that I've recognized from both, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's the mutual family that we got around here. This is a good jumping off point to talk about predictions for this series as we bring up some graphics to the screen. So the Knicks in this series are currently favored at -390. It's
GMAC. Can I say something real quick?
Yes, please do.
I tried to talk Sam off the ledge. Like
I was there. I saw. Believe me, I put the clip together. I
just wanted to make sure. I tried to be like, "Are you sure?" Because I have a prediction I want from you two. We can save it for later, or do it before, whatever. But I was like, Sam, I don't think you want to do that, my guy. But whatever. I finally got him out of the Cade Cunningham for most improved player thing. So one win is all I'm going to get this month, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how many wins the Pistons or the Knicks get in this series as we go through some of the odds over from our friends over at Fanatics Sportsbook. The Knicks are currently -390 to win the series. The Pistons, if you're picking the upset, Sam, are +300. Or if anybody is picking the Pistons to upset the New York Knicks, if you think this will be a series decided by more than 1.5 games. So if the Knicks win in 6 or in 5, or if the Pistons win in 6 or in 5, here are the odds. The Knicks 1.5 series spread is -165. So they win in 6, 5, or 4. It's -165. And the Pistons at +135 if they win in 6 or 5 or 4. And then if you guess the series correctly, I'll pull up the exact ones. But Knicks in 5, for all those who love the hashtag, it's +250. And then I'll just say by now, Knicks in 7 is my prediction, and I'm going +400, which is +400. So, but look, Knicks in 6 is also plus 425. So if you want to pick the series correctly, you can. I'll pull up the Pistons odds as well. And just like the series total as well is if it's over 5.5 games is minus 140, under 5.5 games is plus 110. Gentlemen, I give you all that information and ask for your picks, your predictions for this series.
Bryce, you go first.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, I'll stay with what I said. I said Knicks in 7 on game theory. I think that Cade Cunningham will have a monster game in Madison Square Garden. I think this will truly be his coming out party this series overall. And I think he's going to really rise to the occasion. I think he'll have a huge game. I don't think Detroit has the second scorer. I just don't think they'll consistently have that guy. And so I have Knicks in 7, Detroit walking out of the Garden with their heads held extremely high for the season they had, the series they put together, and feeling good going into the offseason.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for more, right? If you're a Pistons fan with that outcome. I think we're going to be 3 for 3 here. I picked the Knicks in 7 on Dexter Henry's. Yes, Andrew?
I'm co-signing. We're all 3 for 3. There you go.
3 for 3. I was vacillating with going Knicks in 6. I just seen too many possessions of this regular season and just feel too much respect for what the Pistons can do and how good Cade Cunningham is and his unique ability to just get to where he wants to go, which, you know, if you base it on that, and it's a little Luka-esque in terms of the size and the pacing, and he's not moving that fast, especially in the half court, but he just gets to his, you know, happy zones. And against the Knicks, he did it time and time again. He's going to be a handful. I think the Knicks have more talent, and I think the talent will win out in the end, but it will be a very uncomfortable, a very agita-inducing 7-game series. And the Pistons, like you said, Bryce, will have their head held pretty high. The Knicks, we'll see about what happens in a potential round 2, but I think the Knicks win it, but it's going to be very close in 7.
So one of my observations about both this pod and I think us 3, Bryce, you're obviously coming at this from the Pistons perspective, but you're actually probably better than anybody that has a specific team that they specialize in. You're one of the more objective people that I know that can talk about the league at large.
I saw you liked my tweet the other day. Somebody tried to come at me, and I was like, I'm not truly a fan. I didn't grow up a Pistons fan. I just cover the team. I literally don't care whether they win in 4, lose in 4, win in 7, lose or 7. I'm a Chiefs fanatic. I act irrationally about the Kansas City Chiefs. I love covering the Pistons and talk about them, but I'm not a true fanatic where it's like heartbreaking and stuff like that. So I think that allows me to remove a lot of biases and emotions.
So before I get back to my point, I need to emphasize fanatic, like Chiefs fanatic. He can't be told the score. Like, not even like,
that's because I don't watch the games live.
Right. So we'll do game theory on Sunday nights. We'll do game theory on Sunday nights, and Bryce is doing game theory during mostly primetime games, which is what the Chiefs only play. And so you don't watch games live, and I'll just be like, oh, the game's on. Like, all I have to do is say the game's on, and Bryce is like, GMAC, you better not tell me anything about the game. I swear. You can't. Don't even tell me that it's on. I'm like, okay. That was like the very beginning of our friendship. It's like, okay, say nothing about the Chiefs, which is why.
Bryce, are you one of those that are like analyzing the tone of voice, like how he said it? Like, did that suggest they're winning, that they're losing?
So here's who it comes from is my son. So I have a 10-year-old who I'm like super jealous of because he's only lived in the Patrick Mahomes era. And it's like, you spoiled little brats. You know what I listened to and watched as I grew up with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you get to live through Patrick Mahomes to start. I equate him to a Dallas Cowboy fan because this is what Dallas Cowboy fans my age are now living through, was awesome childhood, awful adulthood. But so I do analyze the way, and he's gotten good at it. The last time he did it, and I like had to tell him like, good night, buddy. Love you. Whatever. See you tomorrow. He did a great job. He was I think it was the AFC Championship game. He was so good that I actually thought they lost by my like judging of how he told me, and they ended up winning. So he's figured it out.
That's good. A lot of pressure to put on a 10-year-old boy. I'll just say that, like, to know AFC Championship game ended, and your dad's like, "Don't tell me anything with your
he had
look
to do
or tones."
he had to do it for the Super Bowl. And like him and my
Oh.
wife are down in the basement celebrating quietly, like doing their happy dance or whatever, while I'm upstairs, like in the second quarter, because I just started the game. That one the Super Bowl got ruined for me because somebody in town lit off fireworks. And I was like, oh. So this year I watched the Super Bowl in the basement, which didn't end up mattering because I got their butts kicked. So, but I was like, I can't let the fireworks ruin it. And it's like, it's over in the second quarter anyway. No fireworks are coming for this one.
Yeah, I was to say there would have been if there was any fireworks in your neighborhood, there's probably more arson than anything else.
People
after
pissed off.
Yeah. Well, where I was going with that, because you tend to be more objective, you're able to look at this series from a 360 view with that type of perspective. And yet you still have the Pistons in 7 after what you've seen from them this year. And then DJ and I don't echo it's not as much concern with the Pistons. It's very much like concern for the Knicks. I am so 10 out of 10 concerned. This team has just so many tendencies to be unserious. You're able to punk them if you want to. They've just been punked entirely too many times. I know the Trae Young rolling the dice thing shouldn't matter, but it does. Can I ask something?
So this must be real. So we had the other thing I'll say is I think I have good perspective because of game theory, which Sam makes me watch all 30 teams. And so I get a lot of notes as well. James Edwards III for The Athletic used to cover the Pistons, so I know him very well. We had him over on the pod. He brought this up as well. And this was not like, it wasn't a direct question, guys. It was just like, we were just talking and he brought it up. And I'm like, this might actually be advantage Detroit with their attitude and demeanor. And like, we're going to come at you and we're going to tell you about it. And we're going to talk about it. And we're going to be, is this a real thing? Like,
it's been all year. Yeah.
Wow.
It's even more highlighted juxtaposed against last year's team.
Correct.
Like you bring a fight to last year's team, they're bringing it right back at you.
So what's the missing? Is Dante's the missing piece in this?
I don't know if it's specifically Dante. It's like a combination of Dante, Randall, Hartenstein. Like,
oh yeah, Hartenstein.
Like they had some dogs on that team last year, and this year it's a little more like we overwhelm you with our talent. Last year we overwhelmed you with our effort, and which is why I think the Knicks will win this series because the talent will at a certain point just be overwhelming. It could end in 6. I have observed how the Pistons have already started to build up their, like similar to what the Knicks did last year. Like we're going to at least try harder than you. And I've just sat through too many unserious first quarters, too many unserious second halves that I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, Knicks in 5. Now they may win in 5 and I'll look stupid, but I'm not predicting it.
Yeah. It's funny. The quintessential plays of last season, you can argue like one in the regular season, the Pistons like crazy ending and that where the loose balls and and then you had obviously game 2 against Philadelphia, and those were the type of plays that team just made time and time again, and it was just like this unrelenting ability to just get every loose ball and to never, despite like, all right, this game's over, like you look at it, you're like, all right, they're not winning this one, and they just had a knack for pulling these games out of, that they should have no business winning. And this team there's that. And then I think it's more there's a edge that this team doesn't have. And it was always like, yeah, but they're more talented. And in November, December, it felt like that was the proper take, right? They had the 1 or 2 best offense in the NBA. They were, I know, not beating the best teams, but they were bludgeoning the worst teams and just looking at times like a great basketball team. But like that offensive, and then we didn't really get into this that much, but their offensive ability has slowly deteriorated from December, has gotten progressively worse to the point where they're still a top 10 offense, but they're not like one of the best offenses in the NBA, and certainly have not been one of the best since January 1st. And I think that is part of where Andrew's coming from. Like, yeah, this is more of a Knicks issue that I'm picking them in 7 versus what the Pistons are. But I know the Pistons are going to have their own abilities to make the Knicks like struggle at times. But yeah, the Knicks performance since the calendar year turned is really underwhelming. And, the Pistons have been better since January 1st. Like that's a real thing. I know Brunson missed some time in there, but That's another part of this that's making me feel this is going to be a really close series.
I got to be honest, Bryce, DJ pinpointing January 1st. It's literally if you go to NBA stats and sort from January 2nd on, because at that point on, they had the most difficult schedule in the NBA. January and February were just filled with, we're playing the Thunder twice in 2 weeks. We're playing the Timberwolves twice. We're playing the Celtics again. We're playing the Lakers right before they get Luka. Like
Memphis when they were really good. Yeah.
Right. Like we were playing all these contending teams. And then like Brunson goes out. If you look at it from, I think, the January 2nd to the end of the season, they're around 15th or 14th in net rating and around 11th in offense. And if you want to take out the month from March 6th on, that like you just sort it to then, because March 6th is when Brunson got hurt, it's still like a top 11 team, not a top 4 or 5 team anymore. So it's why I struggle with the any arrogance I should have. Like last year I was ready, like bring me Philly, bring me Embiid. I'm ready to go to war with this team. This team has not earned that confidence, at least from me, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping this series against the hard fought Pistons team, like bring it out of us, bring the fight out of this Knicks team, so that if they do advance and go play Boston, they at least went through a war before they got there.
I mean, they were the lovable Knicks last year, right? Like that, it was. And listen, like I'm not trying to like infuriate you. Like I don't like New York because I'm terrified of the actual city. I have nothing against people from New York. Like I have friends from New York. I went to school out on the East Coast. I'm just literally terrified of New York City, and just because of where I'm from and the difference. I have one stoplight in the town I grew up. New York has 50 million, and it's terrifying. Literally, I'm not talking about like crime. Like it's just terrifying.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Bryce,
I'm not
there are two traffic lights in my window. I completely get it.
Like I just don't want people to take it the wrong way. It's not like I'm like, oh, New York's a gross city or a dangerous. Like it just terrifies me. Like the metro in DC was like, oh, this is awesome. Then I went to New York City. I'm like, this. I can't understand this. Like, where do I go?
I would pay money to see you navigate Broadway. Legit web series.
There you go. That's an off-season game theory.
I would pay for that.
Bryce on location. Bryce navigating New York City subways.
Guys, if Sam told me I had to go to New York City to stay on game theory, I might quit. Like
the end.
I'm almost 40 years old. I don't need that stress in my life. My hair's obviously already gone, and my blood pressure's too high. New York City's just gonna make it worse.
But yes, they were the lovable Knicks last year. You were saying,
but it's interesting to hear that that's not the same like vibes and energy and intensity, and because it was all of those things. That's why even I loved watching him last year. And again, I'm not a fan of like, who's good to watch, who's fun to watch, who's aesthetically pleasing to watch. And that basketball I think is why this Pistons team, to your point, GMAC, I think is why this series could be a lot of fun. And I do agree with you. Sometimes you need the Detroit Pistons, the young Detroit Pistons, the sucked the last 4 years Detroit Pistons to come in and maybe punk you one game to get you to like wake up and come out of it. Maybe it'd be the best thing for New York to find the best versions of this team and themselves.
So shout out to the fine folks at Fanatics Sportsbook. If you are picking the Pistons in 6 is plus 850. Pistons in 7, Sam Vecini, is plus 900. Pistons in 5 is plus 1500, and Pistons in 4, if you think they'll really punk the Knicks, is plus 2500. And with any bet that you put, especially with the odds getting better, you get a percent of your wager, your unit back in fan cash. So check out the fine folks over at Fanatics Sportsbook.
I want to ask one question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who do you guys think is the Pistons' second leading scorer in the series?
Malik Beasley.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
It feels like a chalk pick, but I think it's
a little PTSD
threes
too, TJ. It's a little PTSD too. He hasn't missed at Madison Square Garden this year. So I think there's some games I remember where he hasn't missed either.
Yeah, Macri had the note in his newsletter. So Pistons shot 35% during the season from 3. That number was 41% during the regular season against the Knicks. A lot of that, obviously, Malik Beasley. So
yeah,
he's a terrifying shooter.
I don't know if this will. Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. I think calling it a historic season is not hyperbole. He's been absolutely incredible. It's my argument for why Cade Cunningham's second team All NBA, because I love to play the thing of who is the Pistons' second best player, and then people usually go silent trying to roll Beasley, Harris, Asar, Duran, and it's like 5 seconds of silence tells you all you need to know whenever that question is asked. I don't know if this will make you guys feel better or not, but the Knicks are only one of 2 teams above 500. The Pistons won a series against this season. So I don't know if that the Lakers, they went 2-0 against the Lakers.
Was it pre or post Luka?
Pre.
Okay.
I believe. I don't remember doing Luka games. But so I don't know if that means like the Knicks stuff was just an outlier to back up DJ's point with the 3-point shooting, or if like this is actually, we're going to get into a playoffs and like this is actually a good matchup for the Pistons.
Well, we didn't get into it, and this will be brief, maybe. Cade Cunningham pull-up shooting, 34% from 3 pull-ups during the regular season. Bryce, you've watched him all year. Like, is that a weapon of his that you feel confident in, can really bend in defense, make them react? Or do you think the Knicks are like, listen, if he takes 4 pull-up threes in a game, we'll live with that?
No, I mean, if I was going to force Cade anywhere, it'd be to the rim. I mean,
okay.
I think that's where he still struggles the most is finishing at the rim. If you have the right rim protectors, right? Like, I mean, if there's no rim, this might turn into a long conversation. If you have, you have, like, if you're forcing him into Mitch Rob at the rim, I think that's probably a win for the Knicks over definitely a mid-range jumper. I might challenge Cade still to like, hey, is your pull-up 3-pointer there? I think it's just whenever he gets it all going, right? Like he hits a pull-up 3, he gets a catch and shoot 3, he gets a post-up action. Now he's creating. Like, that's
what happened in the 3rd game of the year. He just kind of like, I don't know if it was a layup or something got him going, and then it was like, all right, he just scored 15 points in 4 minutes. Yeah, like, what happened?
There was a 3rd quarter takeover in that game where he was really, really good. So I think that's what it is. I've always said this about Cade Cunningham. I think what makes him special is his all-around game. I think he's going to defend, he's going to rebound, he's going to create, he's going to score. And so because of that, I think he is hard to defend because I think he would be more than comfortable shooting 10 mid-range jumpers. The 3-point one is interesting though, DJ. Like, I wonder how comfortable Cade would be if you said, you know what, you're going to shoot 12 threes tonight and we'll see if you like that volume or not. I don't know how he'd feel about that.
Yeah, and that's what Spoelstra did against, and Jameis, you remember this, Spoelstra in the Heat series 2 years ago was like, yeah, Brunson, you're just going to be a pull-up shooter in the series. And then in game 6, like he shot 4 of 10 or 5 of 10 and took every time that shot was available, he took it. Now back to Brunson quickly, that pull-up 3 on the right wing to his right hand, that's a shot that typically has been like one of his like bread and butter like ways to generate offense. He's been a little more reluctant this year to take that shot. I think he'll have opportunities against this Piston team. So I think for him to get that shooting volume up for the team, 3-point volume, it has to involve Brunson taking pull-up 3s. And then, you know, as Brunson as a scorer, like when he drives through the nail with his left hand, he gets into that short mid-range area, kind of like Cade, just outside the restricted area. He's so tough to handle. And I think that's where, you know, whether it's a drop or in isolation, like if he can get through the hip of the defender, get to the nail, he should be effective. And then it's all about like, how can he hold up defensively to really maximize his overall impact? But as a scorer, pull-up 3s and then getting through the nail as a Knicks fan, like just keep an eye on that. That's when you know Brunson like has the full repertoire going.
Good stuff, fellas. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this edition of KFS X's and O's. Bryce, before you get out of here, please let the fine folks at home know where they can find you and your wonderful Substack that I've put the link to in the live chat, and we'll do so in the episode.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. The Substack is probably the thing that would interest you the most. Guys, you don't have to subscribe, but like I would recommend going in. I know GMAC.
Subscribe to the Substack. It's free.
Okay, it is free, so I don't know what the issue is, but at least subscribe through the series. I'll have a preview dropping tomorrow. Again, my raw notes. That'll give you guys an idea of how I do things, have analysis and those notes coming out after games. And then I plan on doing video breakdowns. And again, it's not just from a Pistons perspective. I'll have a page and a half notes of the Knicks, and it may be more come play. I don't know. I've never got to analyze a playoff game before, so who knows? This might be a whole thing, but and then the Pistons Pulse podcast, GMAC is going to come join us over there next Tuesday after game 2. So join us and watch that live. And then, of course, Game Theory Podcast with the Sam Bassini.
Note 1, Mikal Bridges is guarding Cade. Note
Stop.
2, Mikal Bridges can't guard Cade. Note 3, Mikal Bridges is ass. Wow.
No.
Note 4.
No. The actual steps were Mikal Bridges has Cade matchup. Step 2, Bridges hasn't been very good defensively. Step 3, they really traded 5 first-round picks for this. Step 4, Mikal Bridges cannot guard Cade Cunningham.
It's the greatest succession of bullet points that I've seen in my entire life. DJ, I'm going to now give you the floor to talk about a little promotion that we've got going on with the Knicks Film School Patreon.
Yes. Playoff Patreon promotion, 51 wins. Knicks, maybe a slightly low number, but you get 51% off your first month of any tier monthly subscription for our Patreon. Specifically the work that I do. If you are Brunson tier or higher, you have access to my mailbags, to my film sessions. I do a few of those per week. Benji Ritholtz, he has his grade books, enhanced grade books after every game. So he'll go in, give the grade for each player, but also provide a snippet and game film for each one to sort of justify grades that he provided. I think some great content. Obviously, the pods with Macri, the ad-free stuff that we have going on there. And speaking of the mailbag, there will be one I'm recording Thursday morning around 9 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on when you're listening to this, if you have time and you're a subscriber, get over there to the Patreon, give me a question, and I'll make sure to get that answered. And I know there will be some stuff for game 1, Andrew, if I'm not mistaken, that I'll be doing with Knicks Film School regarding coverage. Is that anything?
Oh, you're going to be with Macri after the game for game 1, so that's confirmed.
That's
the other thing as far as Patreon is concerned is we also have a town hall that we do for all of Monroe tier subscribers. So join us on Zoom Thursday nights when you're listening to this, probably tonight, and hang out with us as we preview this series with a bunch of Monroe tier subscribers, and you get your first month and maybe just the entire next month 51% off. Shout out to the Knicks for winning 51 games, giving us a 51% discount. My goodness, would this look different if they were a 65-win team? And then I don't have the graphic ready, but join us this Saturday at T-Squared Social. If you don't want to watch the game online or watch the game at home, join us with the rest of the Knicks Film School family at T-Squared Social, 7 East 42nd Street, just a stone's throw away from Grand Central Station. Bryce, I would love to, part of the series that we do this summer for Game Theory, I just want to see you navigate Grand Central. That's all I want to see is you try to find the Long Island Railroad from street level. Just like, all right, just go in the door and find the Long Island Railroad.
For what it's worth, I've been there a few different times, and it's beautiful. And it's here's a funny story. I took my official visit to Seton Hall, and they were playing in New York City, so we went to Madison Square Garden. So I've been to the Garden, and all of that. It was not for a Knicks game, which I'm sure is completely different. But we pull into Times Square, and my dad goes, "Man, this is beautiful." I'm like, who the hell are you? I've never heard my dad use the word beautiful in my life. I mean, my dad is like old, gruff farmer, like had never flown on a plane until I started getting recruited. I had never flown on a plane until I got recruited either. And he like seems Times Square, and all of a sudden he's using the word beautiful. I'm like, I think that tells you how kind of special, all of it is there in New York City. So again, I have it's a great city. It's just not for me because it's terrifying.
I love that flex, by the way. I never got recruited. I never went on a plane until I got recruited either, Bryce.
Oh.
By the way, one last thing. I did end up pulling it up. The promotion for this Saturday. Join us at our Knicks Film School watch party live at T-Squared Social. We'll be there as early as 5 o'clock. Reserve a table on Open Table or going to the T-Squared website. Be there or be T-Squared when the Knicks take on the Detroit Pistons. I think that will do it for us, for Sam. I almost said for Sam, for Bryce, for DJ, and for me, GMAC. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Peace.